Okay, so here's a couple more problems on factor by grouping. So remember, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to take a look at this problem and we're going to see if we can factor out a GCF. So is there a number that is common to 4, 32, 7, and 56? And we can see 4 is common to 32, but it's not common to 7 or 56. So there's no GCF in this problem. There isn't a common variable in all of them. So there's no GCF that I can take out of all 4 of these. Okay? So we know we can start then with our grouping method. So if we remember from last time, okay, we have, let me just put this right here, move the screen up. Okay, we're going to take our 4a cubed, okay, plus our 32a squared, and we're going to group that, and then we're going to group the plus 7a plus 56. Okay, and when we write this, we're going to write it with a little bit of space, okay, in between the two of them, so I can factor out that GCF. Okay, so now I look at my two different groups I made by putting my parentheses around this piece and this piece, and I'm going to factor a GCF out of both. And remember, if I do it correctly, the piece that's left in the parentheses is going to be the same for both of these. Okay, so what is my greatest common factor in the first group? Well, you can see that 4 is part of my GCF, and I can also take out an a squared. So what does that leave me with inside? It leaves me with a plus 8. Now, if I do it correctly, I should be left with a plus 8 over here. So what would I take out of here to leave me with a plus 8? And what is my GCF of these two pieces? It is 7. 7a divided by 7 is just a. 56 divided by 7 is 8. And you can see that these are identical, okay, which means I get to factor them out of this expression. Okay, I get to take these out and factor them, right? I need to bring them both out front, and I kind of get that 2 for 1 where they both become 1, right? I factor them out, and what am I left with inside? I'm left with whatever was remaining next to that group that I just factored out. So in this case, I would be left with the 4a squared plus 7. That is factored form of my answer. So let's move on to the next one. Okay, we're going to look at this one and we're going to say, okay, is there a number that goes into all of those? Well, if I look at 6, my factors are 1, 2, 3, and 6. None of those go into 10 other than 2. Okay, but 2 does not go into 21 and 35, so there is no GCF which I can take out of every term. I also can't take a variable out, so I can go ahead and factor by grouping. So I'm going to make my first group 10m cubed plus 35m squared. I'm just rewriting the problem, but putting parentheses around the two pieces. The next one, I'm going to leave some space in order to put that GCF in there, and I'm going to group that one to be 6m plus 21. So all I did was put parentheses around those and left a little space in between in order to factor out a GCF. Okay? So what is my GCF here? Hopefully we're getting good at this. It's 5, and I can take out 2 m's from each. What would that leave me with inside? That would leave me with a 2m plus 7. Now, if I factor correctly out of here and here, it should leave me with, inside this parenthesis, a 2m plus 7. So, what would I have to factor out of a 6 to be left with a 2? A 3. 6 divided by 3 is 2, and 21 divided by 3 is 7. 3 is common to both of those, so there's my GCF, and that leaves me inside with 2m plus 7. So, again, I'm going to stick with the highlighter just to show you that these are identical. and that we can factor them out front, right? Bring that down. I'm going to take those both and factor them out. Oops. Make an arrow. So they both come out front and become 2m plus 7. And what am I left with? After those come out, I am left with the 5m squared and the plus 3. And that's what will go right here. And there is your factored answer. Okay? So at this point, you've learned how to factor trinomials by grouping. There's a second video that I need you to watch that is very similar to this one, but we start with factoring out a GCF at the very beginning, and then we do exactly what we did here. So it's just one more small additional skill that I need you to look at. Hopefully that makes sense. When you feel like you have this down, please watch the second video and then try your problems on IXL. Thanks.